Push. You were born limitless. Understand that. From the moment you entered this world, you had no concept of failure, no fear of judgment, no hesitation to try. You didn't come into this life second guessing your worth. Push. You didn't crawl before walking because someone told you walking was risky. You did it because something in you said, move forward. That's who you were before the noise, before the opinions, before the labels. Push. You were born to dominate, not to doubt. But as you grew, the world started whispering. Slowly, the voices of limitation began to surround you. Push. Be realistic. Don't dream too big. That's not for people like us. Those messages became the background music of your life. And instead of fighting them, you absorbed them. Instead of questioning them, push. You believed them. Your spirit, the same spirit that once saw the world as a playground of possibilities, got conditioned to see walls, not doors. Push. You didn't stop dreaming because you ran out of ambition. You stopped because someone else handed you their fear and called it wisdom. It wasn't the world that made you small. It was your mind adapting to the world's small expectations. Every doubt that crept in, push. Every time you said, I can't, every opportunity you walked away from. Not because it wasn't possible, but because your thoughts convinced you it wasn't for you. That's where the chains got tighter. Push. And they didn't show up overnight. No, they were built link by link. A comment here, a failure there, a silent comparison that made you feel like you weren't enough. Push. You started to shrink your goals to fit the size of your confidence. You started to limit your actions to match your fear, not your potential. You began to question yourself more than you questioned the limitations placed on you. Push. You accepted boundaries not because they were real, but because they were familiar. It felt safer to live in the box than to challenge the walls. And the tragedy is the box was never even locked. You just never tried to open it. Push. You were taught to believe that struggle means stakes, mean you're not good enough. That rejection means you should give up. But none of that was truth. That was programming. That was fear disguised as protection. Push. That was insecurity dressed up as common sense. You've been caged by thoughts that were never yours to begin with. You inherited fear from broken systems. You adopted self-doubt from voices that never believed in themselves. Push. You were trained to obey mental limits like laws, as if someone else's ceiling is now your sky. You became fluent in the language of lack, so fluent that abundance started to sound foreign. And now, push. Every time you get close to a breakthrough, that inner voice, trained by years of small thinking, pulls you back into safety. But that voice doesn't speak truth. It speaks memory. It speaks conditioning. Push. It speaks pain dressed up as logic. You were never meant to settle. You were never designed to live average. That's why it feels so uncomfortable every time you lower your standards. Push. That tension in your chest when you play it safe. That's not fear. It's your original self begging to be free. You're not broken. You're buried under years of thoughts that don't serve you. Push. Under doubts that were handed to you, under beliefs that weren't born in you, but were planted in you, and they grew because you watered them daily. With your agreement, your silence, your surrender. But your real power, push, it was never gone. It was just locked behind the thoughts you allowed to dominate your mind. The world didn't take it from you. Society didn't strip it. Life didn't erase it. It's still in you. Push, waiting on you to unlearn what shrunk you, because the chains around your potential weren't made of steel, they were made of thoughts. And thoughts can be changed. Your mind is either a prison or a power plant. Push. It's either generating the energy to move your life forward or trapping you inside your own excuses, fears, and doubts. The same mind that can visualize success, that can dream in full color, that can map out visions, strategies, push, and destinies. It's that same mind that can build walls so high you can't even see the sky anymore. It can cage your potential with what ifs, lock down your ambition with fear, that push, and bury your calling under layers of hesitation. Your future isn't determined by your background, your resources, or your connections. It's determined by the direction of your thoughts. See, push. You think the problem is that you don't have enough time or money or support. But the truth is, those are surface level obstacles. The real barrier is how your mind reacts to them. Some people see adversity and build solutions. Push. Others see adversity and stop before they start. That's not about ability. That's about mentality. That's about whether your mind is working for you or against you. A power plant doesn't wait on energy. It creates it. Structures that push. It generates power from within. That's what a strong mind does. It doesn't wait on motivation. It doesn't wait on ideal circumstances. It creates momentum. It generates purpose. It builds inner fire. Push. A power plant mindset looks at pressure and says, I'll grow under this. It sees failure and says, this will teach me. It sees delay and says, push. This is preparing me. That's what separates the relentless from the regretful. It's not strength. It's thought discipline. But a prison mindset, it does the opposite. It turns every inconvenience into a crisis. Push. It turns every challenge into a reason to quit. It makes you see yourself as powerless in situations where you were built to dominate. And the most dangerous part is when your mind becomes a prison, you don't even realize it. Push. You get comfortable inside it. You decorate the walls. You call it a realism. You call it being cautious. But all you're doing is locking your future behind bars of your own making. Push. You handcuff yourself with thoughts like, I'm not ready, or it's too risky, or what if I fail? And the worst part is you believe it. Push. You believe the lies your fear and tells you more than the truth your spirit whispers to you. You don't see the power you already have because your mind has trained you to focus on what you lack. Push. It zooms in on your flaws instead of your strengths. It replays your losses instead of reinforcing your growth. And every time you choose to feed those thoughts, the prison gets stronger, the bars get thicker, the door gets heavier. Push. And before you know it, you're sitting in a cell, staring at a life you were supposed to build, wondering why it feels so far away. But the reality is, you were always capable. The potential was always in you. Push. What changed wasn't your ability. It was your belief. You stopped thinking like a builder and started thinking like a captive. Push. You stopped acting like the architect of your life and started waiting for someone else to hand you the blueprint. And that's the trap. Push. That's how the prison strengthens. When you surrender your control to your circumstances instead of taking command of your thoughts. Every excuse you've ever made, every opportunity you've walked away from. Push. Every time you said maybe later, it wasn't because you couldn't, it was because your mind talked you out of it. It told you to play small, to stay quiet, to wait your turn. But your turn never comes unless you take it. Push, and you can't take it until your mind gets in alignment with your vision. You don't need a new opportunity. You don't need a miracle. You need to make a decision. Will your mind be your engine or your enemy? Push, because it can only be one. It can't generate power and protect your comfort zone at the same time. It can't drive forward while it's chained to hesitation. Push. It can't lead you to purpose. You let it keep you locked in your past. What you think is what you become, not what you wish, not what you say, not what you write in your journal. Once a week, what you consistently think. Push, because your life is not shaped by what you hope for. It's shaped by the conversation going on in your head every single day. You don't become what you post about. You become what you rehearse in your mind. Push. The strongest vision in your life is the one you mentally submit to over and over again, even when nobody's watching and nothing's happening. That's the one that shapes your identity. Push. That's the one that builds your future or breaks it. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your thoughts. Everybody has goals. Everybody writes New Year's resolutions. Push. Everybody's got a dream board, a vision wall, a 5-year plan, but very few people ever reach that level because their thinking never aligns with it. They want to fly, but they keep thinking like they're grounded. Push. They want to build empires, but they're still thinking like victims. They want success, but they think in cycles of fear and doubt. And you can't outwork a mindset that's working against you. If you believe you can't, push. It doesn't matter how many opportunities knock. You won't answer. If you believe you're not good enough, it doesn't matter how many rooms you're invited into. You'll find a way to shrink yourself. Push. If you believe you're stuck, even when doors open, you'll stay seated because the mind sets the boundaries for your behavior. Your actions can never stretch beyond your belief. Your habits can never grow beyond your identity. Push. The moment you believe something is impossible, your effort dies. Your creativity shuts down. Your willpower collapses. It's not that you don't have what it takes. It's that your thoughts buried it before it could grow. Push. Most people don't fail because they lack the ability. They fail because they thought small in moments where they were called to think bold. They surrendered their future to a mindset that was inherited, not intentional. Push. They let the voices of their past dictate the vision of their future. They repeated what they were told. Push. You'll never make it. People like you don't win. And for where you are. Be grateful for where you are. And instead of breaking the pattern, they became the pattern. They didn't challenge it. They became it. Push. They didn't reject the lie. They embodied it. You've got to understand your reality is your mindset made manifest. The life you're living right now is a reflection of the thoughts you've tolerated. If you think from fear, you'll live in fear. If you think from lack, you'll always feel like you're behind. If you think from insecurity, you'll sabotage anything good that comes your way because deep down you don't believe you deserve it. Push. You become the energy of your thoughts. That's why two people can go through the same storm. One breaks, the other breaks through. It wasn't the storm. It was the state of mind. One chose to think like a survivor. Push. The other chose to think like a leader, and that choice, that mental decision, created two completely different outcomes. You can grind all day, you can hustle from sunrise to midnight, but if your mind is still rooted in defeat, push. You're only building faster in the wrong direction. You're working harder, but staying stuck. You're busy, but not becoming, because the real breakthrough doesn't start with what you do. It starts with how you think. Push. The real change happens when you stop asking, can I do this? And start telling yourself, I'm built for this. When you stop seeking permission and start moving with conviction. Push. When you stop thinking like a person trying to survive and start thinking like a person chosen to lead. Your thoughts are the foundation of your results. You can fake it for a while. You can say the right things in public. Push. But sooner or later, your life will bend to the shape of your dominant mindset. You cannot outperform your own thinking. You can only level up or fall down to the thoughts you believe the most. Push. Negative thinking is self-sabotage in disguise. It doesn't show up loud. It doesn't barge in like an enemy. It whispers. It convinces. It pretends to protect you. It wears the mask of logic. It tells you to play it safe. Structures that push. It sounds like caution, but it's really fear. It sounds like being responsible, but it's really surrender. Every time you say, I can't, what you're really doing is shielding yourself from the possibility of failure. Push. But in that moment, you're also shielding yourself from the possibility of growth, of success, of breakthrough. That thought is not saving you, it's stopping you. When you say, push, it's too hard, what you're really doing is accepting that difficulty is stronger than destiny. You're saying that comfort means more than calling. Push. But what you don't realize is that difficulty is the very thing that refines you. The hard things, they don't break you, they build you. But the moment negative thinking creeps in, push. It paints hard work as punishment instead of preparation. It convinces you that struggle is a sign to quit when really it's just the price of elevation. Negative thinking disguises itself as truth. Push, but it's always rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough. And it will use anything to justify its presence. It'll bring up your past. It'll highlight every time you messed up. Push. It'll remind you of every door that slammed in your face. It'll replay every moment you were overlooked, underappreciated, or underestimated, but it never shows you the full picture. Push. It never tells you about the strength you gained through those moments. It never tells you that you survived what tried to break you. Because if you knew how powerful you really are, those thoughts wouldn't stand a chance. Structures that push. You're not battling the world. You're battling your own thought patterns. The world isn't stopping you. People aren't blocking you. What's blocking you is the inner narrative you keep repeating. Push. The one that says you're not ready. The one that says you're not smart enough, strong enough, worthy enough. That voice didn't come from your soul. It came from your scars. It came from years of disappointment. Push. It came from voices that never believed in you, and now they live rent-free in your mind, repeating lies you've mistaken for identity. But here's the truth: you can't win a war when the enemy is inside the gates. Push. You can't move forward if your own mind is the anchor. Negative thinking will make you overthink opportunities until they vanish. It will talk you out of action, then beat you down with regret. It will stop you from trying. Push. Then shame you for not becoming. It creates a loop, a trap, a cycle that keeps you running in circles. And the longer you entertain it, the more it rewires your brain to accept limits that were never supposed to be there. Push. It tells you to lower your standards, to adjust your dreams, to settle, not because it's right, but because it's easier. Because if you expect less, you won't be disappointed. If you don't try, you can't fail. Push. That's the lie it feeds you. It tells you that staying small is safe, but the truth is staying small is slowly killing your purpose. Staying small is comfort-coated in regret. Every time you let a negative thought go unchecked. Push. You give it permission to direct your decisions. You hand over the wheel to something that was never meant to drive. Negative thinking doesn't just stop progress. It rewrites your identity. Push. It convinces you that who you are now is all you'll ever be. It makes you think temporary struggle is permanent reality. It makes you forget your capacity. It blinds you to opportunity. Push. It builds walls around your future and then convinces you the door was never there to begin with. And most dangerously, it does it subtly. It doesn't need to scream. It just needs to be consistent. Push. It needs to speak just enough to keep you doubting, hesitating, holding back. You think you're being cautious, but you're really in chains. You think you're being realistic, but you're really living in fear. Push. You think you're protecting yourself from failure, but you're actually robbing yourself of everything you were born to do. Possibility lives on the other side of mental resistance, not on the other side of money. Push. Not on the other side of connections, not on the other side of luck. The thing you're looking for, the breakthrough, the transformation, the elevation. It's not being held back by the world. Push. It's being held hostage by your hesitation. Every goal you keep putting off, every step you keep talking yourself out of, every dream that sits on the shelf collecting dust. It's not that you can't do it. Push. It's that you've built a wall of resistance in your mind and you keep treating it like it's a real barrier instead of a mental illusion. You're not waiting for the right moment. Push. You're avoiding the discomfort that comes with movement. You're not held back by lack of resources. You're held back by the resistance to stepping into uncertainty. Structures that push, that hesitation you feel before you start something big. That's not your intuition talking. That's fear trying to sound intelligent. It's resistance dressed up as reason. Push. It's your mind trying to protect from pain by keeping you from progress. But here is what most people never understand. Your mind isn't programmed to help you grow. It's programmed to help you survive. Push and survival mode doesn't build dreams. It builds patterns, safe patterns, predictable routines, mental cages. You want more, but the moment you move toward it, resistance kicks in. You start overthinking. You start imagining worst case scenarios. You talk yourself out of action and into waiting. You look for a sign. You look for a green light. You wait for certainty. But the truth is, you'll never feel completely ready. Push. You'll never feel 100% confident before the leap. That's the trap. Resistance tells you, let's wait a little longer when the breakthrough is screaming, push, move now. The life you want isn't on pause. It's being delayed by your unwillingness to push past that inner friction. Mental resistance doesn't need facts to control you. It only needs repetition. Push. It only needs you to hesitate long enough for the moment to pass. And once it passes, it hits you with guilt. It tells you you're lazy. It tells you you're a failure. But the truth is you're not lazy. You're locked. Push. Locked inside a mindset that's trying to avoid risk more than it's trying to pursue reward. That's the war. That's the daily battle. Not against the world, not against the odds, but against the voice in your head that says, push, not now. That voice doesn't care about your greatness. It only cares about your comfort. But here's the shift. Possibility isn't far. It's not buried under some mountain. It's right behind that resistance. Push. The second you decide to move despite the doubt, to act despite the fear, to speak despite the uncertainty, you break the pattern, you weaken the grip of hesitation. And with every step you take, the resistance gets quieter. Push, your confidence grows louder. And what once felt impossible suddenly becomes part of your story. You think the dream is too big, but what's really too big is the lie you keep believing, that you're not ready. Push, that you're not qualified, that you don't have what it takes. That's the resistance talking. That's the gatekeeper of your next level. And every time you turn away from it, push, you delay the life that's already waiting on the other side. But the moment you face it, the moment you push back, everything starts to change. You start to see that fear was just a shadow, that the doubt was just noise. Push, that the wall was never real. It was just built in your mind. Every legend you admire, every leader you respect, every story that inspires you, they all had to face the same resistance. Push. They all had to push through moments where their mind screamed, stop, but they kept moving, not because they didn't feel fear, but because they knew what was waiting beyond it. Push. They knew that clarity doesn't come before action. It comes because of it. They understood that freedom isn't found in avoiding resistance. It's found in breaking through it. Possibility is not reserved for the fearless. That push, it's revealed to the ones who move forward anyway. You're not waiting on a miracle. You're waiting on a mindset shift. That's the truth nobody wants to admit. Push, because it's easier to believe something or someone else is going to change your life. It's easier to wait for the breakthrough to come from the outside. Push. Instead of realizing that everything you need to go to the next level is already inside you. You think you're stuck because of your circumstances, your finances, your connections. Push, your timing. But what's really keeping you stuck is how you think. It's the internal dialogue you've accepted as reality. It's the quiet, daily agreement you've made with limitation. Push, it's the belief that something magical has to happen before you finally move. But success doesn't respond to wishes, it responds to will. You don't need a sign from the universe. Push. You don't need another motivational quote or another someday. What you need is a decision to flip the switch in your mind. Push, because the second you go from I hope to, I will, from maybe to definitely, from I wish I could to I'm going to, everything begins to shift. That one shift in language, in posture, push, in belief. It breaks the mental ceiling that's been holding you down, because it's never been about what's out there. It's always been about what's in here. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your inner commitments. That push, that's what drives results. That's what changes lives. You keep thinking success is going to come to you like lightning, but real success doesn't strike you. It grows in you. It's built choice by choice, thought by thought. Push. It's not a flash. It's a mindset, a way of thinking, of believing, of approaching every moment like it matters. And that's why so many people miss it. They're waiting for something big to happen, a breakthrough, a blessing. Push, a once in a lifetime opportunity, but they're ignoring the daily mindset that is quietly sabotaging every chance they already have. You don't get lucky, you get aligned. You don't get chosen, you choose. Push, and the first thing you choose is how you think. As long as you're operating from a mindset of lack, of fear, of self-doubt, you will continue to create outcomes that reflect that. You'll hesitate, you'll procrastinate. Push, you'll play small, you'll self-sabotage, you'll make excuses and call it timing. You'll let fear disguise itself as wisdom and let logic justify inaction. Push, not because you're incapable, but because your mind is wired for protection, not progression. That's why you have to override it. That's why you have to reprogram it, because if you don't change the way you think, push, you'll always end up back where you started. The people you see rising, the ones who break through every obstacle, they're not waiting for perfect conditions. They're not waiting on a yes from the world. Push, they've already given themselves permission. They've already made up their minds. They've already decided it's not if, it's when. That's the shift. It's not external, it's internal. Push. It's not about waiting, it's about becoming someone who refuses to be passive, someone who doesn't fold under pressure, someone who doesn't hand over their future to fear. Push. That kind of person doesn't wait on miracles. They become one. You think you need more motivation. You don't. You need new thinking. You think you need more time. You don't. You need more intention. Push. You think you need to wait for the stars to align, but all you really need is to align your mindset with your mission. Because when your thinking upgrades, your behavior upgrades. And when your behavior upgrades, your results follow. Push. It's not luck, it's mental transformation. The world doesn't change for you. It responds to who you become. And who you become is determined by the way you think every single day.